Welcome to Top Knot Education, where you get a chapter summary of a classic novel in less time than it takes you to walk to class. Today we'll be talking about Catcher in the Rye, Chapter 22. This is going to be another long one, but it's arguably the most important chapter in the book. Chapter 22 picks up where the last one left off, with Phoebe and Holden arguing in DB's room. She's very sad that he got kicked out of school again. For all her childishness, she's more mature than he is, in the sense that she understands the stakes are very high for Holden. "Oh, why did you do it?" she pleads. It's a good question, one we've spent a majority of the first 20 chapters trying to answer. We're close to figuring it out, too. Grief, loneliness, arrested development, maybe some socioeconomic guilt. Holden adds to our reasons by reminding us of his moral and social integrity. Here's what he tells Phoebe. Quote, "A million reasons why. It was one of the worst schools I ever went to. It was full of phonies and mean guys. You never saw so many mean guys in your life. For instance, if you were having a bull session in somebody's room and somebody wanted to come in, nobody let them in if they were some dopey, pimply guy. Everybody was always locking their door when somebody wanted to come in. And they had this goddamn secret fraternity that I was too yellow not to join. There was this one pimply, boring guy, Robert Ackley, that wanted to get in. He kept trying to join, and they wouldn't let him, just because he was boring and pimply. I don't even feel like talking about it. It was a stinking school. Take my word." He follows that with a few more quotes, one making fun of the principal, Mr. Thurmer, another about all the phony alumni. Phoebe, who knows Holden better than anyone, says, quote, "You don't like anything that's happening." Then she challenges Holden to, quote, "Name one thing," end quote, that he likes. He tries, but his mind drifts back to an important memory. There was a boy at one of his old schools called Elkton Hills. Remember, names are puns and metaphor. And this boy's name couldn't be more powerful and unmoving. It was James Castle. Castle privately insulted a phony popular kid named Phil Stabile, whose name is not quite stable. Stabile gathered his friends and cornered Castle in one of the rooms. They started beating Castle up, but Castle wouldn't take back what he said. Instead of giving up his own moral and social integrity, Castle jumps to his death from the window. Holden hears it happen, and when he investigates, he's mortified to see Castle on the ground, surrounded by blood and broken teeth. Previously, we'd thought that Ackley was the ultimate figure for rejecting social expectations, but it turns out James Castle is. He held so strong to his principles that he killed himself for them. We've seen a lot of potential versions of Holden, paths that will lead him to being phony and dopey, Carl Loose being the most recent one. Castle is the exact opposite. But, and this is an important but, we don't want Holden to be this either. Castle's suicide is ultimately an immature act, a childish overreaction to the evil around him. There's a spot between Castle and Luce, which Aristotle called the golden mean. We want Holden to find it before he tips too far one way or the other. Morbidly, Salinger points out that Castle was always called in roll just before Holden. Quote, Cabell R, Cabell W, Castle, Caulfield, end quote. Will this be Holden's fate, or will something catch him on his way down? Holden finally answers Phoebe's question. "I like Allie," he says. She rejects the answer since Allie's not alive. Phoebe follows up with another question, asking Holden what he wants to be when he grows up. His answer is immature and silly and wrong, but like Holden, it's also loving and fundamentally decent. Here's what he says. Quote, "Anyway, I keep picturing all these little kids playing some game in this big field of rye and all. Thousands of little kids, and nobody's around. Nobody big, I mean, except me. And I'm standing on the edge of some crazy cliff. What I have to do, I have to catch everybody if they start to go over the cliff. I mean, if they're running and they don't look where they're going, I have to come out from somewhere and catch them. That's all I do all day. I'd just be the catcher in the rye and all. I know it's crazy, but that's the only thing I'd really like to be. I know it's crazy." A couple of things about this. One, it follows the story of a boy jumping to his death. Holden's response to Castle and to Allie's tragic death is to wish he could work as a catcher, catching these troubled young kids so they don't die when they hit both the literal and metaphoric ground. Second, he's got the song wrong. It's from a poem by Robert Burns, and Phoebe points out that the lyrics are actually "when a body meet a body coming through the rye." There's no catching at all. In other words, Holden's life goal is to be a metaphor in a field based on a poem that he misunderstands. Holden is sweet and kind of heroic, and we love him for this sentiment, but the plan is even less defined than his goal to work on a ranch out west. His lack of education has never been more obvious than this moment. Holden has another sudden memory of another old teacher of his, this one named Mr. Antolini. Antolini and James Castle's fates are intertwined, as we will see in the next chapter. Holden gets up to call Mr. Antolini, but before he does, chapter 22 ends. Or next time. Get to class.